The United States and Germany have struck a deal to resolve their dispute over the Nord Stream 2 project. Washington has long been opposed to the gas pipeline connecting Russia to Germany. The Biden administration has now agreed to allow its completion without imposing further sanctions, though it remains opposed to the project.
It hasn't even been completed, yet the Nord Stream 2 pipeline has been a major thorn in the side of US-German relations. The project will provide a second pipeline under the Baltic Sea, doubling the amount of gas Russia can supply directly to Germany. The US fears that it'll give Russia too much power over European gas supplies. It also sees the new pipeline as a security threat, as Russia could shut down another pipeline supplying Ukraine and other nations.
We continue to oppose Nord Stream 2. We continue to view it as a Kremlin geopolitical project whose goal is to expand Russia's influence over Europe's energy resources. We continue to believe it's a bad deal for Germany, it's a bad deal for Ukraine.
The German Chancellor has always framed the project as a commercial venture and has tried to deflect opposition from allies. But she was also determined to resolve the issue before she leaves office this autumn. It was one of the topics she discussed with US President Joe Biden last week.
My view on Nord Stream 2 has been known for some time. Good friends can disagree. But by the time I became president, it was 90% completed. And imposing sanctions did not seem to make any sense.
So now a compromise has been reached. In a joint statement, Washington agreed to suspend all sanctions and tolerate the new pipeline. Germany, in turn, has committed to impose sanctions on Russia if Moscow uses the pipeline as a political weapon. It also agreed to use its leverage to help extend a gas deal between Russia and Ukraine. But critics say the agreement doesn't go far enough, and Ukraine has already voiced its discontent. The completion of Nord Stream 2, however, is now all but a certainty. With 98% of the pipeline built, it is set to go into operation later this year.
Well, for more, let's bring in DW's chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane. Melinda, is this deal a foreign policy victory for Chancellor Merkel at the end of her time in office?
Absolutely, it is. She has remained firmly committed to this project in the face of opposition, not only from several U.S. presidents, but also from the U.S. Congress and even from some members of her own party. She admits, or she admitted fairly recently, that this project is not only economic or energy related, but also geopolitical. But she actually sees geopolitical benefits in Nord Stream 2. She believes that by keeping these economic and commercial trade links open, Germany and Russia foster a degree of interdependence that ultimately keeps lines of communication and diplomatic relations open. So the Chancellor essentially has gotten what she wants. The project will be completed. There will not be any more U.S. sanctions against participants in the project. And Germany has made moderate concessions at best. It will spend money, but not a whole lot of money, trying to help Ukraine transform its energy sector to reduce its dependence on gas and fossil fuels. And it will also agree to get tough on Russia if Russia uses this new leverage coercively against Ukraine. But these are pretty broad declarations of intention, and otherwise Germany hasn't given up all that much. I think what we're seeing is how very much the U.S. wants Germany on its side as it looks to get harder and tougher with China.
Now, Germany has pledged to impose sanctions on Russia if Moscow uses the pipeline as leverage against countries like Ukraine. How realistic is that Germany would impose those sanctions, perhaps even unilaterally?
I think it's realistic enough. Germany has imposed plenty of sanctions against Russia and various actors in Russia over the past few years, naturally after Russia annexed Crimea, but also after the poisoning of Sergei Skripal, and also in regard to the treatment of Alexei Navalny, the opposition leader in Russia. But the real question is, how realistic is it to think that any of that will change Russia's behavior? Certainly, we haven't seen much evidence that Russia responds to sanctions.
Now, Germany will have a new chancellor after September's elections, Melinda. Chancellor Merkel is no longer standing. How likely is it that the next government will change its position on Nord Stream 2?
That depends on how strong the role of the Green Party is in the next government. The Green Party's chancellor candidate, Annalena Baerbock, has made it very clear that she would take a harder stance vis-a-vis both Russia and China. And the Greens are no fans of this pipeline anyway, because, of course, it's transporting a fossil fuel, and they want to wean Germany off of fossil fuels. Should the Greens be the party that provides the next deputy chancellor, perhaps even foreign minister, possibly even chancellor, look for some changes on Nord Stream 2. However, it's worth noting that in a recent survey, the majority of Germans said that they're for this project.
Melinda, thank you so much. Good to see you. Our chief political correspondent, Melinda Crane.